Shalom. All praises, honor, and glory be unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Makakodash. Double honor to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Peace and blessings to the hopeful elect, to the Akim doing the work in truth and sincerity, as well as the few Akwath that listen and learn. This is Brother Shawar with another lesson through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai. And this is the biblical proof of who the real Israelites are today. You know, and this is really, it was inspired by a comment I saw on one of my videos on the other platform, BitChute. You know, he sounded like an Edomite. You know, this guy was saying, you know, that the original Jews, the original Israelites, are so-called white people. You know, and that's absurd. You know. But, you know, there's still people who, you know, really think this way, you know, in this day and age, even after all the biblical proof, after all the evidence, the history, the relics. You know, there's still people who are blind to the facts. You know, after the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, you know, through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashem Yahshai broke everything down. You know, there's still people who aren't going to see it, of course, because, you know, this is the Lord's movie and there's roles to be played. You know, but there's also people who still need to learn and are still going to learn are still going to be new in learning until, you know, the doors of mercy are 100% closed. You know, so this is really just, it's really just the milk, you know, the milk scriptures of, you know, who we are, man, who the Israelites are. You know, so let's get right into it. And, you know, before I get a scripture, the Hebrew Israelites today are the so-called Negros, Latinos, and Native Americans. You know, I have all the tribes in the description of all my videos listed on what tribe is who and what they're called today. You know, but through biblical prophecy, you know, through the spirit and history, you know, and I mean, and relics as well, and artifacts, you know, these are the people of the Lord, man, as well as, you know, in the flesh, man, you can see it. You know, the proof is in the pudding. But, you know, it's good. There's a lot of scriptures I got, you know, so I'm going to just jump right into it. So we're going to start in Genesis in the beginning. So this is Genesis 25 and 23. And the Lord said unto her, 2 nations are in thy womb, and 2 manner of people shall be separated from thy bowels. And the one people shall be stronger than the other people, and the elder shall serve the younger. So this is talking about Rebecca when, you know, she was giving birth to Isaac, to Isaac's children. You know, there's 2 nations in her womb, you know, and it's prophetic and it was symbolic of what was to come, you know, in the times we're in now. You know, one is stronger than the other, and we know, you know, let me finish reading it, and then we'll break it down more. Verse 24. And when her days to be delivered were fulfilled, behold, there were twins in her womb. And the first came out red all over like an hairy garment, and they called his name Esau. And after that, his brother came out, and his hand took hold on Esau's heel, and his name was called Jacob. And Isaac was 80 years old when she bare him. So this was symbolic of, you know, the protagonist and antagonist of the Lord's movie. You know, Jacob, you know, which are the Israelites, because the 12 tribes of Israel sprang out of Jacob. You know, he changed his name to Israel, meaning Yasharala in Hebrew. You know, and Esau, the antagonist, the so-called white man. And it said he came out red all over like an hairy garment. And when people hear red, you know, a lot of people, you know, they think of ruddy, you know, ruddy is like that bronze, you know, that's what they think of when they think of red. But no, this meant not ruddy. This didn't mean like that brown bronze. This meant like blood red, like, because when you look at Edomites, so-called white people, their blood shows forth through their skin. You know, that's why you have the term rednecks, you know, and, you know, you see it when they, when they're sweating and, they blush or whatever, their cheeks get red. They get real red, man. And that's the reason why they tan a lot, man. It's subconscious, but they're trying to be like everybody else. And because every other nation has melanin, has pigment. And that's really what it is. They don't have pigment. And if you look at Esau's name, you go back to the etymology, it means wasted away. And that's why they called him Esau, because he came out and he was all red all over. And if you even go further back, before Jacob and Esau, that was the curse of Cain, to not have any pigment. And that was a mark set on them to know, because Esau would eventually become the wicked, that the Bible speaks of, the devil that the Bible speaks of. And that was a mark put on them to know that, man. And if you fast forward to today, what Job 9:24 tells us, the earth is given into the hand of the wicked. And we all know if you don't know who's ruling the planet Earth right now, you're in denial or you're just living under a rock. And look at all the things they've done, man. And if you're gonna sit there and tell me these people aren't wicked, then you're part of the problem, man. And the Lord has judgment for you, because your mindset is all the way wrong. But that's another lesson for another day. So this is the beginning. Jacob and Esau were born. Two nations were in. When it said two nations, it meant these two people, meaning they're fraternal twins, they were going to come out and become two completely different nations, right? So, so let's talk about the inheritance. Switch gears a little bit. So now Jacob and Esau are born, and the inheritance was given to the line of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, not Esau. So the chosen line, the chosen seed line, was prophesied and written even before Jacob was born, was to be given to Jacob, to Israel, the children of Israel. And that's that's well known. That's a fact. So I'm gonna get a precept for that, and then we're gonna move further. This is Deuteronomy 32:9. For the Lord's portion of his people, for the Lord's portion is his people. Jacob is the lot of his inheritance, right? So Jacob is given the inheritance of the Lord. And what's the inheritance? The kingdom of heaven, the crown of life, all the blessings written in the book. So let's go to Deuteronomy 28, because this is probably, this is probably the biggest, one of the biggest glaring evidences that we are the children of Israel. The curses. The curses when because time to time, I'll tell people about the truth, and depending on who they are, and after I read their spirit. But the first place I go to explain who the children of Israel are today is the curses, because the curses are very glaring and they stick to one group of people, and by process of elimination, it's clear to see who these curses are put upon. And going back to that comment that inspired this video, none of these curses, are, and of course things happen to everybody, but as a nation, none of these curses are on the so-called Jewish people today, or the so-called white people today, or any other nation for that matter. It's only on the so-called Negros, Latinos, and Native Americans, and we're going to read them. We're not going to read all the curses, because you can do that for yourself. We're going to read some of, I'll go through it a little bit, go through the chapter, and then, we'll kind of make our way down. So I'm going to start at Deuteronomy 28:1. And it shall come to pass, if thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe and to do all his commandments, which I commanded thee this day, that the Lord thy God will set thee on high above all nations of the earth. So the Lord is talking to, about the covenant he made with the nation of Israel. If we kept the covenant, we kept the agreement, which we didn't, hence the curses, the Lord will set us upon high above all nations. And he will ultimately, but, because we went off and broke the covenant, that's where Yahushua comes in, hence the new covenant. and, the kingdom of heaven after the destruction of Babylon the Great. But no, that's not what this lesson is about. So we broke the covenant, man. We went off in the ancient world, and this is what the Lord said. So jump down to the 15th verse, Deuteronomy 28:15. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I commanded thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. Right, so the Lord said, if you do what I said to do, all these blessings will come upon you. If you do what I didn't tell you to do, you do the opposite, then all these curses will be put upon you. And we didn't do it. Our forefathers went off, so the Lord put us through these curses. Hence the various captivities we've been through, and from the Egyptian captivity, Assyrian captivity, Babylonian. I'm gonna put a picture up so you can see. But yeah, so the Egyptian, Assyrian, Babylonian, Persian, Greek captivity, Rome captivity, and now the American captivity, which is the last captivity that we'll be a part of. After this, it's rulership for the Israelites. So I'm going to dive into some of these curses. I'm going to jump down to, you read the whole chapter because all the curses are glaring. But I'm going to get, like I said, I'm going to get some of the more obvious ones and just make my way down. So I'm going to jump down to 45, Deuteronomy 28 and 45. Moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee and shall pursue thee and overtake thee till thou be destroyed, because thou hast hearkened not unto the voice of the Lord thy God to keep his commandments and his statutes, which he commanded thee. And they shall be upon thee for a sign and a wonder, and upon thy seed forever. Right? So these curses are a sign and a wonder, for who the Israelites are. So that's why I said earlier, by process of elimination, when you look at who these curses apply to, you come to the conclusion that it's the so-called Negros, Latinos, and Native Americans, man. It's very obvious, man. So these curses is the first thing and a big thing to prove who the Israelites are today. So next verse, Deuteronomy 28 and 48. Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which the Lord shall set against thee, in hunger, in thirst, and in nakedness, and in want of all things, and he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck, until he have destroyed thee. Man, when you go to Google and type in yoke of iron, and what comes up is the yoke of iron itself, and Israelite slaves of the Southern Kingdom, your so-called Negros, and yokes of iron on their neck. When have you ever seen, a so-called white man with a yoke of iron around his neck, as a nation? Even if you find some picture of some weirdo doing it, let's be real. And that goes for the other nations as well. Like I said, like the scriptures say, this was a sign and a wonder. So where was I? Yeah. So yeah, he put us enemies against us, right? Verse 49. The Lord shall bring a nation against thee from far, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle fileth, swift as the eagle fileth, and nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand. Right. So because the Northern Kingdom was over here in the Americas before anybody. And what happened, man? Christopher Columbus, whose real name is Cristobal Colon, came over here, and he had Hebrew interpreters with him. If you do diligent research, you can find that information out, and there's a reason for that. So he came over here, and that's what led to, the rape, rob, and murdery of the tribe of Gad, man, and the tribe of Reuben. What was I gonna say? Salakia, I just lost my train of thought. Yeah, that's what led to that, and the enslavement. That's what I meant to say. The enslavement, of the tribe of Gad and Reuben. Right, and that's who it's talking about. It's not that's what it's talking about when it says a nation from afar, because they traveled all the way to the west side of the world to go and do that. So let's jump down to Salakia. And the other part of the northern kingdom, or like the so-called Latino tribes, that was the Assyrian captivity. The Assyrians had the northern kingdom in captivity, the so-called Latino tribes, and then eventually the Spaniards. And that's where you get the word Hispanic from. Basically means, slave of a Spaniard. And that's in the book of 2 Kings. You can read about the Assyrian captivity. So yeah, let me jump down to verse 54. So Deuteronomy 28 and 54. So that the man that is tender among you and very delicate, his eye shall be evil toward his brother, and toward the wife of his bosom, and toward the remnant of his children, which he shall leave. So your brother, man. Israel is the only people right now on the planet Earth as a nation. Of course, people are going to have problems with people in other nations and stuff happens. That's not it's not every single person. But as a nation, our people are the only people that will see one another on the street and cause beef just because somebody looked at us wrong, just because, there's this hatred between us. And it comes, it stems from slavery and Esau and, self-hate that Esau has basically beaten and programmed us to believe. But, it's Yahweh Bashem Yahshua doing it ultimately. And we're the only nation who is in consistent gang wars, consistent, beef amongst each other, killing each other in the streets. That's all the tribes. It's more documented and more front and center when it comes to the southern kingdom, the so-called Negro tribes, because Judah is the head tribe, but also it happens in the northern kingdom just as much, man. Just as much. It's just not as talked about. And this is, like I said, every time I read one of these curses, you got to ask yourself, is this happening as a nation to any of these other nations? Because these other nations, they're for the most part, they have, they got things set up, man, when it comes to, their people, when it comes to the dynamic in their societies, and the way their people conduct themselves, and, they got stuff figured out for the most part. And it also says, his eye should be evil towards his brother, and toward the wife of his bosom, and toward the remnant of his children. Right. So, all these problems happen amongst the Israelite family. More so again in the southern kingdom, but still throughout the whole nation. So reading on, that was verse 48, verse 49. No, Salakia, verse 55. So that he will not, Deuteronomy 28:55. So that he will not give to any of them of the flesh of his children whom he shall eat, because he hath nothing left. He had nothing left him in this. He had nothing left him in the siege, and him in the straitness, wherewith thine enemies shall distress thee in all thy gates. And the tender and delicate woman among you, which will not adventure to set the sole of her foot upon the ground, for the delicateness and tenderness, her eye shall be evil toward the husband of her bosom, and toward her son, and toward her daughter. Man, that's the curse on Eve. The Israelite woman has become, the enemy of the Israelite man. This is not happening to these other nations. Even these other nations know, this so-called black woman. And that goes for the so-called Native American and Latino women as well, But Judah gets it the worst because Judah's the head tribe. But it's the whole nation. We got baby mama problems. Jake it's always Jake you see getting, And it's I mean, Esau is so wicked that his unrighteous decrees has, affected everybody in Babylon. But, Jake still is in the forefront of, being victim of child support and alimony, losing custody of their kids, all kind of stuff, man. Eve has an evil eye towards her children, man. They're out here, they're killing these kids, they're aborting them, not wanting to take care of them. And there's a lot of moms out there who do. A lot of Eve, there's still a lot of Eve who try to do the right thing, whatever the case may be. But you best believe these curses are real, man. And there's a lot of Eve who are a perfect representation of this curse. And these other nations know that. This, when you think of a woman like this, or when you think of a man and a woman like this, the last two curses we just read, you're going to think of the so-called Negros, first and foremost, then the Native Americans, and then the Latinos. So like I said, these curses, or like the scriptures say, is a sign and a wonder. So I'm going to jump down to 64, Deuteronomy 28 and 64. And the Lord shall scatter thee among all people from the one end of the earth even until the other. And there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. So the Lord has scattered us to all nations, man. He scattered us amongst every nation on the planet. So you're going to have Israelites that look like other nations. You're going to have Israelites, that are acting like other nations, that don't look like your typical so-called Negro, Latino, Native Americans. And that's a part of the curses. When did this happen to any of these other nations, especially the so-called white man? Because, these clowns want to think that's who the real Israelites are. So when did this happen? When were they scattered, to all the nations of the earth? Never. Never were they scattered to all nations of the earth, man. You got to think about it as a nation, because, simple people are going to sit here and try to, what's the word I'm looking for? They're going to sit here and try to nitpick and weave around it. But you got to think of it as a nation. So then we started going off and more, serving other gods. And that's Jake, man. Jake is out here serving Islam, Egyptology, all kind of stuff, man. Christianity, so-called Jesus, which is Cesare Borgia. Cesare Borgia. That's that image of the so-called white Jesus. That's not what Yahushua looks like, and Jesus is not his name. J wasn't invented until the 1500s. And Yahushua is a Hebrew from the tribe of Judah. It tells you that in the book of Hebrews. It gives you his description, which we're also going to get. So he had a Hebrew name, and J wasn't even invented, so his name is not Jesus, it's Yahushua. But reading on, verse 65. And among these nations shalt thou find no ease, neither shall thou soul of thy foot have rest, but the Lord shall give thee there a trembling heart, and falling of eyes, and sorrow of mind, and thy life shall hang in doubt before thee, and thou shalt fear day and night, and shall have none assurance of thy life. So, man, this is not happening to these other nations, man. Who do you hear complaining about, getting pulled over, man? That might be the death of them. A traffic stop. Jake is the one in the hood, in these ghettos, feeling like they gotta, walk around with a strap, with a gun on them to protect themselves. not sure if they're going to make it home, living in a war zone damn near. And ultimately, Jake the cycle's never going to end, because Jake is, ignorant and, stubborn, and they're at fault for that. But at the end of the day, it's coming from Esau, Edom, that instilled that in, our people, and created these communities, in a trap. That's why they call it the trap, a snare for our people to be in these situations. This isn't happening to these other nations, man. Not at all. Not at all, man. And it even goes, beyond that, because even before, when these devils had us in the hardcore slavery, that was the mentality of Jake, man. They had no idea if they were going to live to see another day. They had no assurance of that life. It trickled down to now, but it was more severe, when we were, going through the hardcore slavery. And slavery didn't stop, don't get it twisted. It's just changed. It's just different. They just do it contractually and not physically. So let's read on to 68th verse. 68th verse? No. Yep, 28 and 67. Deuteronomy 28 and 67. In the morning thou shalt say, Will God it were even, and at even thou shalt say, Will God it were morning. For the fear of thine heart wherewith thou shalt fear, and for the sight of thine eyes which thou shalt see. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again. And there ye shall be sold unto your enemies, and for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. So let's break this down, man, because this is one of the ones that, it's a cold cut to any simple-minded individual who wants to say that the Israelites aren't, so-called Negros, Latinos, and Native Americans. So when it says to bring us into Egypt again with ships, it's talking about slavery. The word Egypt there is talking about slavery with ships. So now, when we look at secular history, everybody knows about the transatlantic slave trade. We were brought over here in what? Ships. We were brought over here in ships, man. It's well documented. Very well documented. When did this happen to the so-called Jewish people, the so-called Chinese, the so-called Japanese, the so-called Indian people, the so-called Arabs? When did this happen to any other nation? With yokes of iron, and all these other curses that we read. It hasn't. And to my knowledge, and to to the masses of knowledge, it hasn't happened. And the Lord isn't going to have it to where, like the scripture said again, it's a sign and a wonder. If it happened and nobody knows about it, that at the end of the day, it doesn't. And here's the thing: Jacob is a lot of the Lord's inheritance. So, even if it did happen to these other nations, the Lord wouldn't care about it anyway. And that's just that, man. And that's how the Lord rolls. That's what these people don't understand. But this hasn't happened to these other nations, man. And no man shall buy you, meaning redeem you, meaning save you. Buy you out of the situation you're in. Once they got captive of us, because it was the Lord's doings. Once they took us captive, we're still here. Our people are still here. We didn't go nowhere. So, and that captivity was physical, spiritual, and mental. And it was the worst captivity known to man. The worst slavery known to man, and that's why these devils are going to pay for it. But, we know what this lesson is about. So, let's switch gears and talk about the characteristics and the appearance of the Israelites. Because this is also, at this point, Deuteronomy 28 really is enough through the Spirit, but, I want to just break all this down, leave no stone unturned. So let's go to the book of Jeremiah 14:2. And it reads, Judah mourneth, and the gates thereof languish. They are black unto me. They are black unto the ground, and the cry of Jerusalem is gone up. Let me read that again. Jeremiah 14:2. Judah mourneth, and the gates thereof languish. They are black unto the ground, and the cry of Jerusalem is gone up. They are black unto the ground. When you go into the Hebrew, and you go to that word black, it's the word kadar. Kadar, meaning dark skin. Look it up. I might put a screenshot on the screen because I'm recording this as I'm reading. So I might put a screenshot on the screen to show you. I'll probably do it. Lord's will. But yeah, that word there means dark skin, right? So, and it's talking about Judah. So how in the hell? So where all of a sudden did we lose our pigmentation? Another thing about our people being dark, Moses passed for Pharaoh's grandson. And how in the hell did Moses pass for Pharaoh's grandson if, and the Egyptians were what? Because the original Egyptians were like your Sudanese people. Those are the original Egyptians. Super tall, dark, lanky. So you're telling me Moses was just, some this little white guy, and he passed for Pharaoh's grandson out of all these super dark individuals? No, Moses was dark skinned. So this is really it's getting old, really, but this is for edification purposes, and the Spirit wants it to come out, I guess. So I'm doing the lesson, but it's ridiculous, If you don't know and if you're in denial about who the Israelites are today, then I don't know what to tell you. But moving on, let's go to Lamentations 4:8. Lamentations 4:8. Their visage is blacker than a coal. They are not known in the streets. Their skin cleaveth to their bones. It is withered. It is become like a stick, right? The visage, meaning their visage, meaning their appearance, is blacker than a coal, like really dark. They are not known in the streets because what? Our people are not known, to be who they are. We think we're coming into that time now where Jake is waking up. The elect is almost sealed because we're in the last days. But ultimately, the majority of our people still don't know who they are. The majority still think they're black, Haitian, Jamaican, Dominican, Argentinian, Cuban, Native American, Mexican, so on and so forth. So, again, this is, it's glaring evidence on, who the Israelites are. But no, let's continue. And you have your you have your black only Israelites, and you have your Northern Kingdom Latino tribe only Israelites as well. And both of those, individuals who believe in that, are very mistaken. Because the Lord, we're going to get into it, but the Lord deals with variety. The Lord made the nation of Israel from dark brown to light brown. So let's get, here we go. Back in Jeremiah 12:9. Mine heritage is unto me as a speckled bird. The birds round about are a gangster. Come ye, assemble all the beasts of the field. come to devour, right? And the speckled bird is primarily dealing with, the scattered Israelites, the Israelite foreigners, but also, the speckled bird means will come in all different colors, man. When it comes to, brown, we'll go from light brown to dark brown. And like I said, the Israelite foreigners that will look like other nations because going back to the curses, we were scattered amongst all nations. But we also, are different in how we look. We got typical traits, and we look similar because if you really get the purest form of, the purest typical features of a so-called Negro, Latino, Native American, they're different, but they're not, they're still similar. And now, through mixing and mingling with other nations and, for generation and generation and generations, a lot of us look a little different, but the bulk of us still has that, our original look, but still, that's how the Lord made us. That's how the Lord made the nation of Israel, right? So like it, where did I, yeah, okay. So now, we're staying on the topic of the, the appearance of the Israelites. Let's get Yahweh's appearance. Because, Yahweh's appearance is going to tell you what his people's appearance are like. He's not going to look different from his people. Because that doesn't make sense. So let's get Revelation 1:14. His head and his hairs were white like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes were red, his eyes were a flame of fire. I was thinking in my head, red. Salakia. So yeah, his head and his hairs were white and like wool. Woolly textured hair. There's only one people on the planet Earth with woolly textured hair. That's the southern kingdom of Israel, so-called Negro tribes. We have woolly textured hair. So, I've never seen a full-fledged Edomite or a so-called white man with woolly textured hair. They don't have woolly textured hair. Now let's read on. And his feet like unto fine brass, and as if they burn in a furnace, and his voice as the sound of many waters. Right? So fine brass. What color is brass? Brown. And as if it burned in a furnace. So if you burn a penny, if you throw a penny in a fire, you take the penny out, the penny is going to be dark brown. So the Lord is a dark skinned, so-called black man with a white woolly afro and beard. That's Yahweh's appearance. And not one of these other nations can look like that, man. You see, look at Apostle Gabar. Apostle Gabar, that's the same type of description as Yahweh. White woolly hair, beard and hair, dark skin. Of course, I'm not saying Apostle Gabar is Yahweh in any way. He's respectable and very respected, as our apostles and the one who taught us, part of the ones who taught us all in this truth, just for the simple ones out there who want to reach. But the description is similar to that of Apostle Gabar, to Yahweh. So that's, it's very obvious, man. We're going to continue to break it down even further, so there's nothing to be said about it. So now that we touched on, the curses, the appearance, and also the beginning and the inheritance, let's, I want to touch on the characteristics a little bit, man, because every nation has certain characteristics about them that, you can call them stereotypes, But, some of them stereotypes are true. Some of them are obviously, ignorant and extreme, and they're talked about in a, in a joking type of way. But some of the characteristics are true. And when it comes to the Israelites, we are the salt of the earth, meaning we have the flavor, the talent. And the scriptures tell us this. This is also this is what I said earlier at the beginning of the lesson, that the proof is in the pudding. You know an Israelite when you see one. We dominate the music industry, we dominate sports, anything, intellectually. We're really, the system is built for Esau. So, but even the inventions, man, all these modern day conventions and things we use, they were invented by Jake, but Esau just took credit for it. For example, the light bulb was invented by Louis Latimer, but when you look it up on Google, what does it say? It says Thomas Edison. So, and that's the devil being the devil. But in all reality, and here's the thing, Jake, scriptures tell us, my people are wise to do evil, but to do good they have no knowledge. So Jake is smart, but right now our people are just wicked. Our people are gone, spiritually dead, and disconnected from Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai. That's why 2/3 have to be cut off and die. But Jake is still smart, man, for the most part. Jake will figure out how to do all kind of stuff with almost nothing. Turn something out of nothing. So let's get the scripture. This is it's Yahweh Shai speaking. It's Matthew 5:13. Ye are the salt of the earth, but if the salt have lost its savor, wherewith shall it be salted? It is thenceforth good for nothing, but to be cast out and to be trodden under foot of men. So you are the salt of the earth. We are the flavor, man. Everything Jake touches rises to another level. All the greatest athletes of all time are Jake. All the greatest athletes today are Jake. All the greatest musicians are Jake. And you may think of hip-hop and rap, but no. Jake dominated jazz and rock, classical music, all these things. Even in these other nations, man. Even when you go to Japan and China, like martial arts, that stuff comes from Jake, man. That stuff is Jake. It's glaring, man. And growing up in school, they always used to say, like, when there was like some so-called white boy with some type of athleticism, because I play sports, play basketball and stuff. There's some, as an Edomite or whatever, or so-called Edomite, not so-called, but what looked like to be an Edomite. He has some bounce or some game or whatever, and he'll do like a dunk, and everybody will be like, oh, like, they'll be surprised. But if someone like me or another Israelite went up to dunk, it would be cool, but they would literally say things like, oh, well, I mean, you're black, so like, it's normal, because Jake is so talented that our standard is so high, we compete with each other. These other nations can't compete with us. And it's like I said, the proof is in the pudding. And the Olympics is a perfect example of that, man. Perfect example. Because Jake dominates it every time. Like I said, we compete with ourselves. So, and man, we know on the other side of the coin, we know damn well these so-called white people don't have no salt, man. If you can't see that, if you don't know that, you're probably one of the people who don't have salt. That's a well-known fact. And it's funny, but it's true. Man, that goes to these other nations too. These other nations may have a little more salt than Esau does, but none of these nations have it like Jake. And when you see one of these other nations that have it like Jake, they're an Israelite. They're an Israelite foreigner, man. And that's part of the curses. So, you know, if you can't see it, man, then the Lord just isn't dealing with you. That's that simple, because this isn't even hard to understand. But, you know, it's good for edification, and it's good to just go over these things, man, through the Spirit. So let's so yeah, I'm gonna talk about a little bit, just, you know, more of the inheritance, man. I have some more scriptures lined up. I don't know if I'm gonna read all of them because it's getting really long, but, you know, we'll let the Spirit do what it do. But this is Psalms 147:19. I probably should have brought this out earlier, but it reads, "He sheweth his word unto Jacob, his statutes and judgments, or his statutes and his judgments unto Israel. He hath not dealt so with any nation. And as for his judgments, they have not known them. Praise ye Yahweh." So he's only given his statutes and his judgments to Israel. He hasn't dealt so with any nation. He hasn't given the covenant to any other nation. It's for Israel, man. And that brings out another precept in the book of Romans 9:4. "Who are Israelites, to whom pertaineth the adoption and the glory and the covenants and the giving of the law and the service of the Most High and the promises, who are the fathers, and of whom as concerning the flesh Hamashiach came, who is all over, Most High blessed forever. Amen. Not as though the word of the Most High hath taken an effect, for they are not all Israel which are of Israel." So again, the promises and the covenants is given to the Israelites. You know, right now, not all Israel is Israel, meaning not all Israel are being Israelites. They're being these other things that, you know, we've been indoctrinated, you know, and taught wrong to believe. You know, like your so-called black, Puerto Rican, Mexican, Native American, so on and so forth. But this book is for us, man. These laws, statutes, and commandments were given to our people. So, you know, like I said, I'm going to read just a few more precepts, close it out. But, you know, the evidence is glaring, man. You know, we are the Israelites. We are Yasharala, man, the princes of the power. All right, let's jump to the book of 2nd Esdras 6:54. "And after these, Adam also, who thou madest, Lord of all thy creatures, of him come we all, and the people also whom thou hast chosen." So there's a chosen seed out of all the nations and the people that the Lord created, because the Lord, you know, we all came from Adam. You know, but there's a chosen line that came out of Adam. "All this have I spoken before thee, O Lord, because thou madest the world for our sakes." So the Lord made the world for the sakes of the chosen line. "As for the other people, which also come of Adam, thou hast said that they are nothing, but be like unto spittle, and hast likened the abundance of them unto a drop that falleth from a vessel." Meaning, if you have a bucket of water, and you ever say you're walking and a drop falls out, you don't care about it. That's what the Lord is likening these other nations to. "And now, O Lord, behold these heathen." That's why we call them the heathen nations. Because they have helped our main enemy, Esau, Edom, the so-called white man, keep us at a low docile state, you know, in our captivity. And they've also had us in captivity. Really, I'm talking about the elites of these other nations, which have ever been reputed as nothing, have begun to be lords over us and to devour us. So the Lord is only dealing with the chosen line, man. And we know who that chosen line is. You know, Deuteronomy 32, we read it. You know, is Jacob, man. He's the Israelites, Yasharala, so-called Negros, Latinos, and Native Americans. This is Revelation 2 and 9. I know thy works, and tribulation, and poverty, but thou art rich. And I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews, and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. And really, this is talking about in the ancient world, about Israelites that, were basically not being Israelites, saying that they were, but not acting like they were. But it applies to now as well. And, let's break it down further, because the Lord said he knows our tribulation and poverty, but thou art rich. These so-called Jewish people as a nation aren't in poverty. They own damn near everything. The elite banking families are Amalek, so-called Jewish people. So where is this tribulation and poverty? The Israelites don't own nothing. We got our little small, quote-unquote, black-owned businesses and our little, Mexican food places and, little home family businesses and stuff. Jake don't own nothing, man. Jake is in poverty as a nation. And of course, you have Jake that make it out of the poor situations because, again, that goes back to us being who we are. Salaki, I should have brought it out. Deuteronomy 7 and 6. And let's get it before I make this point. Deuteronomy 7 and 6. For thou art an holy people unto the Lord thy God. The Lord thy God hath chosen thee to be a special people upon himself above all people that are upon the face of the earth. So the Lord made us better than everyone else. Point blank, period. And it's evident to see. We live in a world now where, these devils have created this soft and, fraudulent world where people just don't acknowledge truth. People run away from truth. People want to live in la la land. They're under all these enchantments and they're not living in reality. The reality is Israelites are superior than all the other nations in every aspect, naturally, and it's facts. It is what it is, man, and that's how the Lord made it. But yeah, so you have a few Jakes that, got some money, got some status, but we know you got to sell out to Esau's system because the earth is given into the hand of the wicked. So he controls all this stuff, man. So you got to sell your soul to get to not even close, but to get anywhere to some high wealth. For the most part. Nowadays, you can kind of do it without being, in the Esau's wicked system too much. But, for the most part, Esau has his hands on all this stuff, man. But Jake is resilient, man. Jake is resilient, and we fight through this stuff. We fight through all this stuff, man. But these devils, these gutter rats over there, they don't, they don't go through this stuff, man, as a nation. And they stole our identity, man. These 1948ers, they stole our heritage. And we're going to prove it with this next precept. So this is Baruch 2 and 30. For I knew that they would not hear me, because it is a stiff-necked people. But in the land of their captivities they shall remember themselves. In the land of their captivities they shall remember themselves. Apparently, these nations been known who they were. Especially these Edomites, they've been knew who they were. These so-called Jewish people, they're not confused on who they are. They've been knew who they were. They've been practicing Judaism, which is a made-up religion. You can't remember yourselves Or you can't remember something, if you already know it. If you already know who you are, how are you going to remember? Because they're not the people, man. The people are the so-called Negros, Latinos, and Native Americans. Right? And the Lord is going to change that, and he's doing it now because this is the times we're in. But it's not the people. They're not the people, man. We are. This is the last scripture I'm going to get and then close it out because, for all the things that these devils have put us through, or the people, the Lord is going to, he's going to give us righteous reparations, man, for what we've been through, even though it was our punishment. But the promises and the blessings of the kingdom are coming for the elect first. And that's what these devils are trying to run away from. And they're trying to manufacture a fake blessing. And that's what's going on in the world right now. That's what this NWO, that's what they're trying to do, is manufacture a fake blessing, a carnal blessing, a carnal inheritance. So let's get this, man, and close it out. It's Isaiah 14:1. For the Lord will have mercy on Jacob and will yet choose Israel and set them in their own land. And the strangers shall be joined with them, and they shall cleave to the house of Jacob. And the people shall take them and bring them to their place, and the house of Israel shall possess them in the land of the Lord for servants and handmaids. And they shall take them captives whose captives they were. And they shall rule over their oppressors. So this is what's coming, man. Captivity for these other nations to build up the kingdom of heaven, and rightfully so, man, because that's righteous judgment, man. The Lord judges by nation, the Lord judges off the iniquities of our fathers. Hence the reason why we even went through the curses, or why we're under the curses and went through, slavery and everything else we read, and the scattering, etc. So there's no getting away from it, man. Because this is Yahweh Bashim Yahushai's movie. He's in control. But yeah, that's, there's more, man. But that's about it, man. The children of Israel today are the so-called Negros, Latinos, and Native Americans. And the Lord is coming back to deliver the elect out of the nation of Israel. Lord's will would be those men. So with that, I'm going to close it out. Lord's will is edifying to the elect. We give all praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashim, Yahushai, Ba'ashim, Kakodash, Shalom, and Kwam Yasharala.